LCC and the opportunities that were provided for me. Thank you for all your technical help back there, Courtney. In fact, I'm a graduate of Lower Columbia College. Make sure. Clicker works, there we go. I got my AADTA here. I also was a student that went through the University Center. I was the first graduate out of Eastern Washington University. My degree is a little bit hard to say, but it's kind of fun when you figure it out. I have a Bachelor's of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies with minors in Communication, Sociology, and Philosophy. And that's a really fancy way of saying I care about people. I care about the way we talk to each other. And I also don't like math. That's a real easy way to show that. Yes, I see our science faculty out there. I love you guys, but I can't do it. After I went through the Eastern program here, I went to Gonzaga University specifically because of their program in organizational leadership, but the concentration in servant leadership, or the idea that in order to lead, you must serve others first. I looked at graduate programs for a long time. That hit me really hard. So that is something I try to keep in my life every single day. If I'm not serving others, or if an action or behavior doesn't have that at its heart, I question why I do it. Where I come from, I've had multi-industry experience here at Lower Columbia College. I worked literally everywhere but the business office and as a faculty. I've been in financial aid, I've been in disability support services, the University Center. I've been a little bit of everywhere. I also spent a year as the executive director of the Community and Technical College Leadership Development Association, where all I did was put on programs to help people be their best selves. Right now, I am an adjunct faculty member at Grace Harvard College. Courtney had talked about some of the things I talk about there: leadership, organizational development. Again, my goal in the world is to find a way that we can all be our best selves, because I think when we do that, we're going to have an amazing place to live. And for the past about 7 years since I left here, on the side, I've been doing my own speaking, consulting, going around to organizations. In January, I made it official, got the business license, got the insurance. So this is what I do, and I'm very happy to be here. When we talk about anything, I think it's important to give our mental model, or the way that we're looking at the world. So I want to point out that for my mental model, my actions must meet my intentions. If I intend to be a good person, then my actions have to be the same. If I say be a good leader at work, but don't remind you to be a good leader at home, we're probably going to struggle a little bit. See someone taking a picture, just so you know, there's going to be a QR code at the end where you can scan it and have this whole presentation. So take your notes, but don't worry about getting this particular PowerPoint. I got you on that one. My goal is also to build community, no matter where I go. I want to build a community that wants to work together, which is hard, but I think it's worth it. One thing that is vital is we have to remember love. It is this awesome force. We hear about it in movies, we hear about it in music. The Beatles saying, all you need is love. If that's true, then what are we doing? Love doesn't mean you have to like somebody, but it does mean that you have to care about them, and that's vital. And most importantly, if I won't do it, I won't say it. Every single thing I'm going to talk to you about today, my 7-year-old, my 6-year-old, and my 4-year-old have heard it first. Leadership principles are that easy, that our kids should be able to hear it, see it, do it. And that's the approach that I'm going to take with you. So the outcomes, I want to do 3 things. That adjunct professor is hard to get out of me, so I give you outcomes so you know what you should be learning by the end. I want to define Superman syndrome. It's something out there that leadership circles talk about and you hear about, but not all of us know what that means. I also want to demonstrate the characteristics and behaviors that America has glorified for as long as we've been around. I'm definitely talking about Western culture and Western ideas of leadership, because if you go to other countries, other cultures, their idea of leadership shifts dramatically, but I'm going to use the things we're used to in our daily lives. Finally, I want to provide some alternatives. What can you do differently that's going to help you be the best leader you can? 3 things. I'm a talker, so doing that in 30 minutes is going to be hard, but we're going to do it. All right, so what is Superman syndrome? Actually, now that I think about it, Superman, this exact Lego Superman showed up in my first community conversation. It's a good 7-year lead up there. So Superman syndrome is the idea that leaders need to be larger than life heroes in order to do good things, to be good leaders. So in our community, in our world, in our businesses, as business leaders, frontline employees, have to be larger than life. And in America, we're good at that. We're good at asking for the larger than life people. We want big, animated, we want superheroes. We want Iron Man, we want Tony Stark. And I can tell you right now, Tony Stark was my boss, I would be out that door in 3 seconds. To really build on it, I mean, Penny and Happy are about the only 2 people that could deal with Tony Stark's BS. So 3 things we got here. One person can save us. The idea that one person, one group of people can step up and save us on a small scale is a little bit scary to me. The other idea we have here is the best, the brightest, and the strongest are the only people that should lead. That was theories that were debunked in the 1920s. World War I and between World War II, getting started, getting ready to go. Those are old school ideas that we still hold to very deeply today. And finally, that heroes can save the world from any problem. By far the scariest thing that we have in our culture. And this you can take from the political spectrum, you can take this at our business. There's a lot of people that believe that Elon Musk is going to be the person to save the world because he wants to go to Mars. Little spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Elon here in just a minute. So when we're talking about Superman, we're talking about any superhero. This could be, I wanted to pick on Black Widow, but I think she actually communicates pretty well and is ready to create, organize, and execute a plan. I might follow Black Widow. But we look at our other people like Thor. If anyone remembers the first Thor movie, he was a boorish jerk with great abs, great hair. I'm not going to deny that, but he was still a jerk. That really came down to the first Thor movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe really came down to, as long as I have my hammer, I can take care of the problem. And the only way to fix that was for someone to take away his hammer. He had to be left powerless in order to see what he could do with his power. And some of us, especially our leaders, might need our power taken away. I see something in chat. Is that you or somebody asked a question? Perfect. Okay. So why doesn't this work? And I'm going to flip back and forth between the last one. First and foremost, if we're saying that only one person can save us, then that means one person is going to be required to do all of that work. And if you look at the way we predict, the way we show Superman in our culture right now, especially with the DC movies out there, literally no one can stop Superman. Which if any of you are comic book buffs and heard of the series called Injustice, what do you do when Superman decides he doesn't want to play nice anymore? Again, a little spoiler, Alfred was the one to take care of business because Alfred always got set down. So the other thing we have here is doesn't leave much room for growth. It's really not inclusive. In this day and age, there are people, leadership scholars, people that teach this, people that train on this, people that write books that believe leadership is something inborn in you. That when you're born, something decides you get to be a good leader. That comes from 1840s theory of great man or Übermensch, which Superman. Übermensch or great man theory says that in order to be a great leader, you have to be ordained. Be this by God, be this by some higher power. To go back to the comic book reference, Silver Surfer is a character that is imbued by a cosmic being, a godlike being in order to go out there and do the things, which gave him the power to do the things that he's done, which is literally fight all sorts of bad guys. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have any way to go and get stronger or be better without stealing something from somebody else. So if we said that Superman syndrome also has that idea of the best, the brightest, the strongest. That means if you're not already there, you can't gain it. And we know that sort of thing's wrong. Just because I don't run fast today doesn't mean that 6 months from now I can't run faster. My young daughter, 7 years old, plays soccer, told me or asked me, Dad, what can I do? I want to be better. I want to be faster. These other girls are running quicker than me. Well, you have to start practicing. You have to do something. You have to get out there and be more than what you are today. First, second grader decides one of my recesses every day is going to be just a running recess. This wasn't something we told her. This isn't something we said, hey, give up a recess, you'll be better at soccer. This is something she decided to do. She's also beet red in the back of the room right now because she doesn't know that I tell that story. First time I've been around real close, my kids get to see what I do for a living. So the other thing we talked about with Superman syndrome is that we're expecting other people to come save the day. Only superheroes can make a change, make a difference. I have been alive for a couple more rotations of the sun than I'd like to admit. I have never seen one person by themselves make a gigantic impact. You can look at Gandhi, you can look at Nelson Mandela, you can look at Mother Teresa, and they were the figureheads. They were the spirit. They were the voice of the movement that they were putting out there. But they weren't the only person doing it. They provided the vision of the way the world could look, the way the world could be. And most importantly, they got in there and really started digging in. They did the work. Gandhi was a pacifist, decided to sit down and said, I won't eat until there's equality, until people are treated with dignity. Stuck to it. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but I don't miss very many meals, so I'm proud of him. Mother Teresa went out and did the work. She worked with the poor, those that were hurting, those that were suffering. That is amazing work. So one person can't do this, but we can show the way so others want to join us. And something that I didn't think about until I came here about 2 hours ago, and I added this to my presentation last minute. These superheroes we're talking about, these super beings that are going to come in and revolutionize our organization, they're going to help our communities be something it never was before. Typically, they show up after the disaster's already happened. When the destruction, when the pain, when the suffering is out there, they come in and say, hey, I can fix that. When we have great, powerful leadership, we don't have to go in and fix it because they were there with us from the beginning. Whether they had the biggest voice, whether they knew all the answers to the question, they were there with us. If you look at the true great leadership in your life, the people that you're proud of, I always think about my grandfather. He was a rough man. You don't get kicked out of a bar for riding your horse through it, for being an easy, gentle soul. But he loved people. When it really came to showing his values, he showed up. And he might not have been able to go out there every day and work with people, but when it really came to providing equitable solutions, he did what he could. I can remember when I thought my grandfather was a super conservative man, when he told me the way he voted, the way he tried to support other people, whether he could be out there picketing or protesting, he did his little piece. And that's where we get into some really cool superhero behaviors. Because, he didn't show up just at the end. He didn't always tell us the things he did, but that was a lot different. So, before we jump on, any questions from our audience? I like chatting back and forth. There's only so long I can hear my own voice. Okay. If something comes up, throw your hand up, let us know. So if we know what Superman syndrome is, why it doesn't work, I also want to dive into real quick what leadership is not, because we get really tied into what leadership is. And the hardest thing is all leadership scholars, anyone that does this work, we're all going to disagree. 100 leadership experts, you're going to have 100 different ideas of what it is. But when someone walks into the room, we can feel it. Because these are the things that we'll see that don't matter to that person. First and foremost, your leadership is not your position, your title, or your rank. If you have to tell people to do something instead of being able to ask them for their help, you might want to question whether or not you're being a leader or if you're using your power, being a manager. That's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But having to tell somebody to do something is not leadership. Being able to ask for their assistance, ask for their help, ask for their expertise, ask for their genius, that's different. Having the right characteristics, we talked about this. It's the biggest, the strongest, the fastest. Because some of these things that we measure, the right characteristics, can change on the daily basis, especially if we look in the fantastical world of superheroes and comic books. The Flash is supposed to be the fastest man alive. Multiple times, Superman's beat him. Anyone you can throw a green glowing rock at is not a real great superhero to me. I'm not a Superman fan if you haven't decided to figure that out yet. Just because you have charisma doesn't make you a leader. Just makes you someone that people like to listen to or be around. Your intellect, your authority, your power. The more you're concerned about forcing someone to do something, the more you have to question first your motives and your ability to get it done. So I have 3 examples of some really poor leadership that I know of. Sorry, I remember I have to keep away from that mic. I don't want to feed back on you. There are countless examples of poor leadership. We've all seen it. We've all felt it. Those are things that, unfortunately, throughout humanity are normal. Because leadership can be scary. You have a lot of power and authority when you can ask people to do things. But there's those ethical dilemmas that we're going to find ourselves in. Are we worried that we're going to have enough food, enough water, enough money, whatever that means? Do we have our ego invested in that? When I first started this particular presentation, I was going to go over the 7 deadly sins of leadership and how Superman violates everyone. That's like a 4-hour talk, and I would love to come back and have that with you today, but Courtney says I only got so much time. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 different things, and I'll kind of give you where they sit in that universe. First, Wells Fargo. That laugh is why I started with them, because Wells Fargo has been naughty if you haven't been paying attention. One of our financial organizations that's been around long enough, I can't remember off the top of my head. And the problem is they keep on getting themselves stuck in it, whether they say they do or not. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, 2018, right before the pandemic's kind of getting ready to go, we hear reports, I think it was out of the Wall Street Journal, of fake accounts, people jumping into their online banking and finding, oh, why do I have 3 more loans? Why do I have extra banking accounts? Why am I getting overdraft fees? I don't have that account. And the more and more they looked into it, they were just straight out creating fake accounts to bolster their numbers and to bolster their stock prices so that it looks like they're doing so much business that people want to continue investing. The numbers kind of go back and forth because there's a lot of different litigation that went on, but we are talking about billions, and that's the B, of money, and they put it out there, straight fraud. That's how they were attacked by the That's how they were held accountable by regulators. Let's make sure we use the proper verbiage there. So we're talking about millions of accounts, billions of dollars, back and forth. For Wells Fargo, I think it was $250 million fine. They made more money than that. That's a slap on the wrist for them. So we fast forward to 2020, and during the COVID pandemic, with the small business loans that were going out there, 100+ employees were found again creating fake accounts. 2 years later, after they had a CEO resign, after they had been fined, after they were going in for congressional hearings, under a microscope, 2 years later, like, forget it, let's go again. And that tells me right there that we have a culture where this is either accepted or expected. The current CEO, and I might be wrong, he might have had to retire now too, said of the organization, well, people can trust Wells Fargo to do the right thing, yes. At a congressional hearing, after they've been caught twice not doing the right thing. The greed involved in that, the ego, the self-importance of our money is worth more than other people's lives, their livelihood, their ability to pay their bills, eat their food, have heat. That's what that situation is about. It's really easy to say, okay, they stole a lot of money. No, they took away individuals' ability to take care of their fundamental needs. And for those of us who've gone through the psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have your ability to eat, your ability to take care of your physical needs, nothing else happens. I'm sure in the next 10 years, we'll have some really interesting research on the psychological trauma that has happened, that has occurred because of that. And we've seen that with the Bernie Madoff scandals, the Enron. The toll literally costs lives. But don't worry, people can trust Wells Fargo to do the right thing. And in case you don't hear this on the recording, there's a lot of scoffs and sad looks. So, Mr. Musk. First and foremost, his 7 deadly sins. He gets ego and pride. It'll be interesting if we get to Mars, but I don't know if we're going to survive to get there. No one or no thing is more important than I am. And we have seen this from Elon Musk time and time again. I'm not even going into Twitter, although I read like 5 different articles this morning. The dude just cannot stop. The only thing that's important to him is his vision of the future and how he's going to get there. So 2020, during the pandemic lockdown, the vast majority of what Tesla's electric cars do is in California. The manufacturing plants, their production assembly, everything is there. So as many of us went through, lockdown. That means essential businesses only. Elon Musk did not care. He openly tweeted, because some of our favorite leaders can't get off Twitter. He said, okay, I don't care. You need to go back to work now. To the point that regulators in California shut them down once. And when it happened again, they kind of couldn't do anything against them. So they made Tesla an essential business. Don't get me wrong, electric cars, I'm for it, but I don't know that that's essential. So in defiance of that, he said twice, I don't care. When they finally opened, even against rules, regulations, emergency powers, many of the workers within 2 weeks hit COVID-19 and really struggled. The hardest thing for me is Elon Musk is really good about saying whatever he wants to say and then rewriting history afterwards. He said, I'm really sympathetic to everybody. You know, I know COVID is hitting some other people's mental health a little bit differently than others. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel secure, you can stay home. We'll find a way to work with you and for you, and we'll figure it out. Everyone that decided to stay home was pretty quickly canned. Not everybody, but most people. And he's currently fighting that right now. He is, over the summer, has said, if you don't want to work and come into the office, you have no place here. looking to buy Twitter, a $44 billion organization who has, from its former CEO, said straight out, we are a work from home organization now. We're remote. If you need to come in and have a meeting, we'll figure places out for you. But you're safe, you're secure, your job is good. Elon Musk threatens that every day the day he decided he's buying Twitter again. I don't know. I can't cuss, but he's crazy. That crap crazy. Okay, so everyone's favorite person, Steve Jobs. You'll never hear me talk about him in a nice way, except for he was a crazy genius. Beyond that, he was an absolutely horrific horde being. And that's why he gets ego. Everything is a zero-sum game. Refuse to delegate anything. If there was a project at Apple, he wanted to be a part of it and understand every intricate piece of that project, whether it was the Mac, those big, beautiful Macs back in the day that were the neon colors. I always wanted those buggers. He was all about that. The iPods, everything new coming through, he wanted to be a part of it. The problem with that is that means he has to be there at all times. He has to micromanage. He has to know everything. And as we talked about before, not even Superman can do that. So how does Steve Jobs think he's going to do that? He very openly fostered a hostile work environment. His own actions were the most extreme. Most people don't know that he got fired from Apple at one point because he wouldn't bathe. He would degrade other people. He would spout nonsense in the middle of meetings. And he was overall just a really, really rough person to be around. Most people don't talk about that. We don't know that. He's the visionary. Yes, he's great. He has great vision, but he treated people literally like garbage. Thankfully or not, he went up in the mountains for a year or two and decided who he was afterwards, but he still rubbed a lot of people. He had 4 or 5 VPs leave in a matter of 6 months. At Apple, I can only assume that job comes with a pretty good paycheck. I don't know that you could get me to leave for someone being stinky and rude. That's got to be pretty extreme. He was a visionary. He was a brilliant innovator. He did a lot of cool and interesting things, but he did not care about the human waste of his actions. If it pissed you off, if it hurt your feelings, or if it made you leave, he didn't care. The only thing that mattered was that his product, his innovation was going to come out there and be seen. Well, I guess I said it on accident. This is an article from The Atlantic. I actually, if you do download use the QR code, download it. I added the article in the presenter's notes so you can read the article. World-class asshole. His best friends would say that about him. It's one thing to say my friend's a little bit of a jerk. To be considered a world-class a-hole is pretty impressive. So the final thing I want to dive into here, because this is kind of depressing. Okay, it's really depressing. And this is the life I have to kind of live. This is where I'm at. I tell you, I got hope, because if I didn't have hope, I'd be in the corner crying. Plus, I have 3 little kids. I have to have hope, which means I also have to get out here and do something. So what can a person do to become the best leader that they can be? And I love this picture. I have used this since the first time I saw it. A boss, a manager, a supervisor can tell you what to do, but a leader is going to be there to show you. They're going to be there to do it with you. And when we have a really super great leader, they're going to move from that front spot to the back so that you can start doing it on your own, and they're there to support you. So I want to give you this top 25 skills that we see out there. This has been, countless different surveys of Fortune 500 companies. This is something that's been building since probably the 70s. We have 25 different leadership skills that you can have here, and that's, things like sharing purpose, being self-aware, being aware of others. We have empathy, verbal communication, empowerment, influence, planning. All these things can help you be a great leader. They can help you be a better version of you, which is where leadership starts. You have to make the decision to adopt behaviors, characteristics, and develop skills that other people are going to want to follow, that other people are going to want to be a part of. It's fun. I tie things in. I said that I chose my master's because there wasn't math, because we shouldn't have a chance doing our accounting. It's not going to be good for anybody. I can handle my household, and that's about it. I chose to develop skills such as transparency up there, my favorite, that people would want to follow me, and we could do a good enough job that we'll hire an accountant, because I don't have to be the one to do everything. You don't have to be the one to do everything. Courtney, you're super capable. You don't have to do everything. We all can have a piece of this. We don't have to do it all day. We have to develop these things that we're best at. There's some people that say work on your weaknesses, and that's one way to do it, but I'd rather you be the best at whatever you are. If you are an awesome bike rider or an awesome instructor or a pretty kick butt drawer, coloring, as I look at my daughter, sorry, I have to encourage. It's one of those things. Choose what you want to be good at. And if that's one or two things that you're working on a year, let's do it. But I'm going to tell you the one thing we all have to make sure to remember. If service is below you, then leadership is beyond you. Because leadership is not about us. It's not about me. The things that I do, me being here today, is not about me. It's about my kids. It's about my wife and the world that I want them to have over the next until I'm dead. When I'm dead, I can't accept responsibility for it anymore. But until then, we have to be doing something. And no matter what your job is, I promise you, you're in customer service. Unless you're living out in the woods in your hut by yourself, then, maybe you're not in customer service. But the rest of us are doing something for others. Whether we work at the power plant, down at the sawmill, at the college, at Burger King, that is customer service. And we all deserve the love and respect, because that service is where we become our best selves. I always try to end on a big question. What are you going to do to make the world a better place? I have a list of 25 characteristics that we can go back to. But I bet that most of us already know what we want to do. And even on a bad day, we can figure out something. On our worst day, our most grouchy, our most Oscar the Grouch, sitting in our garbage can, not wanting to talk to anybody, not wanting to engage anybody. When we're hulked out and just raging, adrenaline going, the part of us that we don't want to show the world, we can still step up and be of service in a way that works for others. And it's little things. Big gestures typically don't do the big damage when it comes to leadership. If you want to have a huge impact, it's those little things that we do on a daily basis to let people know that we love and care for them that matter the most. I worked 2 hours from the home for 3 years, drove to work 2 hours there, 2 hours home every day. I had a coworker that over about a year, our relationship really soured. And I loved this person. I told you that to this day. I'll text her every once in a while, like, hey, thinking happy thoughts for you. But over a year, we really started struggling to communicate and, work together. We were serving students. We were doing advising work, transfer work. We were doing some fun stuff that got to be cool. But we got to the point that we were fighting in the middle of a office meeting. We're trying to figure out what our future was going to be. I said straight out, Jeanette, why are you so rude? Why are we struggling to connect? Because I know we're on the same page and I know we're both good people, but we're not seeing eye to eye. She said, for the past 6 months, every time you come into the office, I said hello to you and you just walk into your office. Which hit me really hard. I realized she didn't know that I wore my headphones in every day. I'd been listening to podcasts or music for the last 2 hours. I was trying to finish up what I was doing. But I realized by not being in the situation, the moment I walked in, I was hurting people. That I wasn't living up to the intentions that I put out there. Which is why when I tell you about my mental model, my actions have to meet my intention. That is the reason that's in there. And I mean, we fought until we cried. And then we realized we both didn't have the full perspective. So as you go on and you think about the way you want to make the world a better place, I really want you to remember it's as simple as taking a headphone out. I didn't even need to take out both. It is as simple as opening the door for someone. It is as simple as being kind of that barista that's taking care of your coffee. Your bad day, your bad situation doesn't have to be theirs. And that's something we forget sometimes. So if you're going to be the best leader you can and avoid Superman syndrome and worry about you're the only one to save the world, remember it's the little things that count, and treating people with love and respect is going to be your first step. You only become a leader when someone chooses to follow you. You can do everything in the world until someone makes the choice to say, that person kicks butt, I'm on that ride, I'm in that culture, I'm in that community, you're not a leader. Which is why to this day, I still think Superman can stuff it. One person, the Man of Steel, that's not the way the world is going to change. If we're looking for real change, we change the structures, we change the behaviors, we change the organizations that made those supervillains in the first place. Maybe we think about the toxic chemicals we mix together. Maybe we think about the way that we treat those who have hard lives. We don't really know where the Joker comes from, but I can tell you it's not a happy place. So if you're sitting there thinking about all those villains in those movies, I hate to tell you, I kind of side with Thanos. Thanos was trying to do the right thing for the wrong reasons. Superman does the same thing most of the time, and we are okay with it because he's the American Man of Steel. These big, large behaviors aren't going to change the world, but each one of us can by making those small choices every day so that others want to follow us. And while I could go on for the next 3 hours, I appreciate you being here. If there's any questions, any comments, any back and forth, I would love to hear it. Right now, if you take out your phone and scan the code, you have access to the PowerPoint. It's on my Google Drive, Google Slides. It's there for you right now. I'm going to keep it up for probably about a month. And then I don't want to buy more space on Google, so I'll take it down then. But that's all for you, and that's up there. I appreciate you being here.
Okay, well, I have a question to launch us off. So you mentioned a lot of sort of pop culture figures and media figures that are sort of glorified, like a Superman or Steve Jobs. Do you think we're stuck into that rut of seeing these all-powerful and often toxic figures as being the ultimate leaders? Or are there other images of leadership in pop culture that we might look at as a better alternative?
So this is a good question. Unfortunately, the reason I believe that we're looking for these easy superhero figures, because number one, that takes responsibility off of us. Number two, it's easy to say we're going to find the superhero. We're going to find the Tony Stark that can throw the trillions at it or whatnot. It's an easy answer. Even some of the people I like Dan Price, he was the CEO that dropped his $1 million salary down to 70,000. Everyone went up to 70,000. You don't want your heart broken, don't look him up now.
Yes, I've unfortunately looked him up.
Yes, because I was championing him, and I still think the idea is great, and he beat all expectations with what he did. Heroes are going to fail, especially if we put one person up there. To keep with the superhero theme, Marvel put out a Guardians of the Galaxy video game. If you've ever seen the movies, it's really fun and cool. Your job as the lead character, as Star-Lord, is to be a cheerleader. Literally, if people are getting hurt and your team's struggling, you can call a huddle and you have to listen to what they say and respond appropriately. And they get bonuses, they get buffs, they get built up. So there are things, especially in pop culture, that we're seeing. We've seen great examples of leadership. It's those that are really saying, you know, I'm just here to do the work. There's so many bad examples, and that's where my brain's been for so long. It's hard to see them. But I mean, our Gandhi, our, I always think of Reverend Desmond Tutu, who was going through and helping the reconciliation process after the African apartheid. And one of the stories he puts in his book, No Future Without Forgiveness, amazing read, goosebumps, like you're gonna cry. He talks about a mother who adopts the men who killed her son. Because they were doing what they were told at the time, and it was a horrible situation for everybody. And she's like, I could blame them, or I could try to help us heal. So there's examples out there. It's way easier to ask for a hero than it is to step up and start doing heroic things. Again, open the door for someone. That's heroic.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Who was the billionaire that just left all of his money to Earth and said the only stockholder we have now is the Earth? Do you know who that is?
So the question was for online is, who is the billionaire that just left all of his money to Earth? Just like our only stockholder. I haven't heard of that, but there's a lot of individuals such as Bill Gates, Shaquille O'Neal, all have plans to leave their fortunes not to their children, but to charitable organizations. There's a lot of people out there that are doing that work. I don't know. I have that infinite mindset where there's enough for everybody, but when 5 or 6 different people are taking up all the funds, to have trillionaires on the horizon is horrific to me. Think about how many people we could feed with how much they make in interest on a daily basis. So I am for people making their money. I'm a dirty, rotten capitalist. Don't get me wrong. I want a boat. I want a shop. I want a studio, all the fun stuff. But we also have to shift our mindset of, I have to get mine. So others, I have to get mine so that I don't miss out. I don't know if it's a real Tom Hardy quote or not, but you see it run around the internet. He said, I want to be so successful that God can bless others from my pocket. I want to do good enough in the world that I can take care of others. Ooh, goose pimples, shivers. That's the people I'm looking for. That's the leaders I love and adore.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chance, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you to our audience, both in person and on Zoom, for joining us. I do want to add, I forgot to say at the beginning, we have flyers in the back that have our whole schedule for the fall quarter on it. So please pick one of those up on your way out if you would like. We also have it up online at lowercolumbia.edu youtube.com/conversations. That's where you'll also find the links to our Zoom events and the links to recordings. So we'll have the recordings up a few days after the events, so you can go and watch this again or share it with a friend. So everybody, please join us again, and thank you for coming.